Hello everyone and welcome to the Florida Physique Report, episode number 21. Today is January 19th, 2015, and on today's show we have a special interview with two guests of ours who were at the Powerhouse gym last November, right before the NPC Nationals. Their names are Jordan Peters and his wife, Corrine Ingman. Jordan is a bodybuilder. He competed in the NABA Mr. Universe, which is held in London every year. He was in that show last year. And Corrine is a women's physique competitor and also a powerlifter. In fact, she just competed in a powerlifting event the week before we had our interview. So it's going to be a really interesting interview. Jordan has a lot of interesting training philosophies when it comes to his training style. He trains very heavy duty, but he uses a system where he's training the muscles more frequently. So he's a very scientific trainer. He's a very successful online trainer. I believe he has over 200 clients all over the world. So we're going to talk to Jordan Peters right after our break. And we are now in mid-January, so we're still obviously heavy in the off-season. And as we introduced last week, we have a new segment on Florida Physique called Training Day Tuesday. So every Tuesday we're going to have a different training video. Last week we had Mariana Coker, who is a figure competitor from the Florida area. Mariana's done very well last year, and we did her shoulder training. This week we got Ferlin Bailey coming up. He's a really good bodybuilder. He won the Mid-Florida competition last year in 2014, and actually that was the very first contest that we covered here on the FloridaPhysique.com. So I got to know Ferlin, and we did an interview with him, and he had a really good back training workout. So he is going to be our special guest on Training Day Tuesday this week. And I hope you've been following along on our Bodybuilding Legends show. It's getting more and more popular every show we do. We've done 3 shows so far. Our first interview was with Chris Cormier. Our second interview was with Bill Grant, who was one of the top bodybuilders from the 1970s. And last week we had a really good interview with Mike Katz, who, if you've seen the movie Pumping Iron, he was one of the stars of that movie. 1970 Mr. America, 1972 Mr. World, and quite often a training partner with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu. So Mike had some great stories. This week we're going to be interviewing Rich Gaspari, the Dragon Slayer. Rich was one of the top bodybuilders in the 1980s. He was the very first Arnold Classic winner in 1989, and he took second place to Lee Haney 3 years in a row, 1986 through 1988. So it's going to be a great interview with Rich Gaspari. He has a very extensive career in bodybuilding. We're going to talk about how he began as a teenager and how he became a professional bodybuilder at only 21 years old, which is an amazing story in itself. So that show on our new Bodybuilding Legends show with Rich Gaspari, that'll be up next week, so stay tuned for that. All right, we're going to take a break from the Florida Physique Report to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Jordan Peters and his wife, Corrine, and they're going to talk different training styles. So we'll be right back with the Florida Physique Report. All right, welcome back to the Florida Physique Report, and I am here with two special guests from London, England. They are here in town for the Nationals, which is coming up later this weekend. And we've got Jordan Peters, who's a bodybuilder, and his wife Corrine Ingman, who is a women's physique and a powerlifter. That's right, guys? Yeah. Well, welcome to Tampa.
Thank you very much.
So tell us why you're in town. I mean, I know you're going to the Nationals, but you're also in Tampa to see someone else, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, our trip originally started last week in West Palm, as Corrine was competing in the World Powerlifting Champs.
Okay.
Which she successfully won.
Oh,
to add to British and European titles. So that was a good way to end the season.
Yeah.
And then.
And a good way to start the holiday.
Yeah. And then obviously from West Palm we came over here to see Dr. Scott Stevenson.
Okay.
Dave Henry, of course.
And Dave Henry. So we spent yesterday with them, and I spent today with them.
Okay.
And then, and yeah, it's been a good couple of days of training and absorbing the knowledge that Scott always has to offer.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about Scott Stevenson, why you came to see him.
Scott has been a mentor, I'd say, to me for the last 2 years. For anyone that follows Scott's work, he's an extremely bright guy. I mean, that goes without saying. Shelby recently had him on Blue Collar.
Okay.
I think it was only a couple of weeks ago. Shelby had him online for an interview again. So that's always a good listen when Scott's talking. So yeah, Scott competes himself as well.
Okay.
So he blends a balance of
obscene education
with actually walking the walk,
with practicality,
which is rare to find someone that's
so good at both.
That's that bright, but that can also compete at that level himself. Last year he came 5th at Masters Nationals.
Okay.
He was in the same class as John Meadows.
Okay.
So yeah, he can definitely hang with the best of them. So he's just a great person to be around, a great person to absorb knowledge from, and then which we then can apply to our own clients ourselves.
Okay.
So it's just been a great learning experience.
Okay. Now, Corinne, you won the powerlifting championships last
Yeah, that's
week?
right. The bench press only competition.
Okay.
Previously, I've won British titles and European titles. So we qualified for the Worlds at the end of August in England.
Okay.
And we came down here to do the bench press only. So it was in the 75 kilo class this time round. And won that, so that was great.
How much did you bench press?
Only 95 kilos today, which isn't a PB.
What is that in pounds?
What is that in pounds?
Just under
Times
225.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean,
So my PB for bench is 120 kilos, which is
255, 260.
255
right.
pounds.
And that's raw lifting.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Right.
unequipped.
But I dropped a few weight categories down because obviously I competed at the NABA Universe competition only 3 weeks ago.
Okay. How'd you do there?
I came 6th, which was it's my first competitive season with NABA, and also really my first competitive season with bodybuilding and physique. So that was really happy with that.
And that was the NABA Universe.
That was
That
the
was,
Universe.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
could sit there and the Brazilian girls that beat me were very inspiring.
How was the
So
competition at the NABA Universe? Because they used to always cover that in the magazines, and they don't cover it really anymore.
it was high standards.
The standards
wasn't it?
exceptional.
Yes, I mean,
Really?
I mean,
Europeans
to make it
just-
through to the universe, you have to have won your regional show, and then gone to your national show, and then placed top 6 at your national, get an
Okay.
invite to the universe. So it's only the top 6 at each country's national is going. So then there's a class of 25, say, that have all placed top 6 in their nationals.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the standard is high.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is in shape.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Is it mostly European bodybuilders that are?
No. I mean, the Brazilian
Brazil is a
team
big team.
bring a really strong team
Okay.
every year. Korea always bring a strong team.
As Italy.
I mean, it's definitely a big international comp.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't just say it was European only.
It's great experience. It was the first international competition I've done,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. I was sort of felt a little bit awe-inspired to even be competing there. To be honest, I was backstage, just thinking, wow.
Right,
I was really pleased with that. So that's the goal again for next year, is to do NABA again.
Okay.
And I'd love to crack top 3 at NABA Universe next year, which I think is within my grasp.
I do.
Coach.
Yeah.
So
Just trying to find that balance of coming in.
slightly denser.
I mean, obviously, this time we favoured conditioning. And we're trying to maintain a fuller look.
Okay.
And Corrine for sure was extremely well conditioned. I mean, Gail put some pictures up
Yeah.
in the women's section of Corrine a couple of weeks ago, and you better see that the conditioning she brought was spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, just to attain that conditioning, we just had to suck her down a bit too much, and it just ended up being just a bit too flat on
I just
stage.
don't
Okay.
don't
And
have the
then-
density of the
No.
sort of top 3 girls,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is an age thing as well, because they're quite experienced competitors and they've been on the scene for
Yeah.
quite a while. So for me, that was just seeing them in the flesh as well, and sort of aspiring to that physique. So now I know what I'm aiming for.
Right.
In this stretch, so trying to put on a bit more density, a bit more muscle, especially through sort of glute and ham, and well, everywhere generally. But,
Yeah, I mean, just so when we do bring you down,
I'm still a bit fuller.
yeah, you don't just I don't know, fade away so much.
Yeah.
because you were just too flat.
Yeah.
And even at the end, once you hit that level of conditioning, your body was struggling to fill back out.
Yeah, just a bit small.
So yeah, I think another year and we're about to have that nailed.
Okay.
So,
And Jordan, tell us a little bit about your bodybuilding career.
this year I placed 4th at the NABBA Brits.
Okay.
So that was our nationals, and I weighed in at 237 on stage there, and that was a decent showing. I was happy with the package that I brought, and then I competed again in the universe, and I just missed my mark. I came in big. I was on stage at 252.
Wow.
But I was soft. I just wasn't as conditioned as I should have been.
Okay.
Between the Brits and the universe, I really I pushed too much for size. And building muscle for me does come really very easily. So in short time frames, I can grow really well. But then it's about ensure I'm giving myself enough time to hit the conditioning I need to hit again after that.
Right.
And then this year was frustrating. In the final stretch into the universe, I was pushing really hard. I'm probably pushing too hard, just to compensate and try and play catch up.
Yeah.
And then at that stage, my body didn't want to know. I mean, when you know yourself that when you push too hard, your body just isn't always going to cooperate.
Right.
And again, that was a good learning experience for me. There's things I've discussed with Scott, and some things there that I'll discuss with Ben tomorrow. I draw a lot of the way I like to train from the way Ben does things also. So that'll be good to run through some things with them as where I potentially went wrong and how I can rectify that next time.
Okay. So you mentioned Ben Pekulski, who trains at the Powerhouse
That's
here
correct.
in Tampa, and you met him online and on social
and
media.
then we're training tomorrow, and then Chris Cormine's in town to take Ben through his training, so he'll be taking us through the session tomorrow.
Okay.
So that'll be a great
That'd be an experience.
experience.
Shall we say?
Yeah.
So that'll be good. And then obviously just after this we have another session with Scott and Dave.
Okay.
It's not every day you get to train with a previous Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Dave Henry is an incredible guy. So just watching him train and what you can learn is pretty cool.
Now, how did you meet David Henry?
Dave has been prepped by Scott for the last few years.
Okay.
So yeah, Scott's always handled Dave's training and his diet aspects. So
We were just lucky that Dave was with Scott.
yeah, Dave just happened to be in town at this time as well.
We've just got the opportunity to meet him and stuff.
That was
so.
good.
Now we were talking before we started about your online training program that you have
That's
over
right.
in England,
That's
and
correct.
you were talking with Ben and making notes about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we run a company called Trained by JP, which is a successful online training company in the UK. And I mean, I'm just trying to draw similarities from the way we run our online subscription site, and just again learning how to push it in the right direction, how to grow it the way we want to grow it. And but so far it's very successful. We're getting good results. We work extremely hard for our clients, which is at the end of the day all that matters.
Yeah.
And as long as we can keep delivering that service, then I'm happy.
Okay. Now, do you do mostly contest prep, or is it more regular people just looking?
No. We cover a wide diversity of clients. I mean, I would literally say it's 50-50.
You've put a lot of people on stage.
Yeah, I have prepped a lot of people, but I mean, with our approach to things, it's not so.
It's not exclusive. It could be anyone. I've got clients that just want to get in shape for a personal event or something like that.
Right.
So
I mean,
it's
we're
across
good
the
at
board.
finding a balance of how to help people in a sustainable fashion, so they can improve themselves
More a
over a
lifestyle.
long term.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, we have contest prep.
Okay.
As well as you have a few clients that you do like kickboxing or martial art competitions.
So, yeah,
boxing
we're not
competitions.
solely restricted to bodybuilding. I mean, if you have a good handle of nutrition, then I believe you can help anyone in any aspect of any sport.
Right.
I mean, strength and nutrition applies to every sport, really. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's, you've got more people coming in now doing very different sports. So it's not just exclusive to bodybuilding or powerlifting, although obviously that is what we promote ourselves. So it sort of goes toe in toe with people who come to our sport.
Have you ever done powerlifting too, Jordan? Or just
No, for me
You
it's
wish.
specifically bodybuilding. I mean, the way we train is very much in line with progressive overload and getting stronger. But no, it's not something that I'm prepared to risk.
Injury
My body
wise,
isn't
yeah.
resilient as Corinne's.
Yeah.
So I don't think mine would
Touch
hack
wood, so that's not.
the heavy loading.
So tell us a little bit more about your training style. You mentioned that yesterday about how it is similar to a power lifter where you're training really heavy.
Absolutely. So we train low volume.
Okay.
So then when the volume is high, we then when the volume is low, we will then ensure that our intensity is extremely high.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we're only doing 1 to 2 work sets, very similar to like a Dorian-esque setup.
Okay.
But then we then train at high frequency, so we'll train everything twice a week.
Okay.
So then again, kind of more similar to how Ronnie trained.
So it's low volume but high frequency.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we're constantly looking to progress our lifts, and then provided that we can recover sufficiently, we'll then repeat it again 3 or 4 days later, and that's how we are ensuring that we grow. So we're just consistently placing those demands on the body.
Okay.
I mean, we logbook all our sessions, so every session we go in with the intention to beat the previous weight or reps.
Okay.
And that's basically how we do it.
Yeah.
Each stretch at a time.
Okay.
And we never really lose focus, even right up the way to a competition. We don't lose focus on strength or overload. Obviously, you have to be a bit more careful towards the end of a prep if the energy, the nutrition just isn't there to recover, or body fat gets so low you do sometimes feel quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
But as long as the emphasis is always on progression, then we're always progressing. And especially you grow very easily. I mean, you grow all the way into a show.
Yeah, I feel that it's
That's to add to
you're certainly able to carry on building tissue all the way into the shows if you are constantly progressing your lifts. So yeah, we never back off the loading.
Okay.
And that's why we find as well, because a lot of people say you can't do powerlifting and bodybuilding in the same stretch, but we find that it does go hand in hand because we're always just trying to get stronger. So although our sessions aren't actually based around a conventional squat, a deadlift and a bench at every session, so it's not powerlifting in that sense, all our accessory moves are constantly progressing. So when we go back to trying out a 3-rep max on the bench press or something,
It's got better.
It's gone up by 10 kilos without ever actually bench pressing in that rep range.
Right.
So that's how we find that it works. So
absolutely.
when people ask how I train.
Now, do you do it like a cycle? I mean, would you set up like a 6-week cycle where you're trying to increase your strength?
Yeah, I mean, so it depends on the setup of our training at the time. So we may be training push-pull legs, so 6 days a week,
Okay.
1 day off. But then as we get into comp prep, we would then typically train twice a day. So adding extra volume through that as we go through, just so we can keep our energy expenditure higher and burn body fat through that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then when we do that, we would train 3 days on, 1 day off.
Okay.
But it's more
But
body
twice a
parts.
day.
Yeah,
Twice
twice
a
a day. So initially, it would the prep would start once a day, and then as the prep goes on, we would divide sessions.
Okay.
So like it would be like chest and back would be one session, legs the second session, and shoulders and arms the third session. And obviously, as you go through, you just split chest and back.
Okay.
AM and PM.
Okay.
Legs split quads and hammies, shoulders and arms. And then before you know it, you haven't adjusted your calorie intake. You're training twice a day, and you're expending twice the calories.
Okay.
So it's a good way to burn more calories without.
Keeps food high as well, doesn't it?
But it also avoids doing too much cardio, which again, from our perspective, it isn't ideal.
Right.
I mean, if you're trying to bring as most muscular look to the stage as possible, or just in general whilst you're dieting down, I mean, overuse of cardio seems to be really common, which I absolutely don't agree with. I would much rather burn calories through lifting.
Right. So getting back to your off-season program, you're training really heavy, but it's the low intensity, low
volume.
Low
Yes.
volume. But you're training twice a week.
That's correct.
So you're still able to recuperate even though you're training really heavy and then training 6
Absolutely.
days
I
a
mean,
week,
if you're
yeah.
really meticulous with your nutrition,
Okay.
then I believe that the recovery is always capable. But obviously, everyone has to vary their volume. So everyone has different recovery capabilities, regardless of how accurate you are with your nutrition.
Right.
So this is where we will constantly tweak our volume and our intensity.
Okay.
And then we'll end the session and we'll look back and be like, how did that feel? Is that recoverable?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what you can do, it's what you can recover from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what will underpin progression. If you're of that mindset, you will always be able to do the sessions.
Yeah.
But 3 or 4 weeks down the line, will your lifts start to stall because you're placing greater demands on your body that you can meet?
Right.
So then it's about being smart with your programming. So then we, as I said, we will constantly look over and be like, right, what lifts are stalling, why are they stalling? We need to then address this. And if you have a perfect program, you can run 8 weeks without anything regressing. It's just progress. And that's when you know you've nailed your recovery capability.
Okay.
So, but then, like as I said, everyone is different there, and really you're only going to be able to ascertain what you can or can't do by trying it. So it's trial and error in that sense.
So give me an example of like what a chest workout would be in the off season with your low volume.
Well, it would be a push session.
Okay.
So it wouldn't just be solely chest.
Okay, it'd be chest.
So in off
shoulders and
seasons,
triceps.
so it would be 3 sets of a chest move, then with maybe a single set of an isolation chest
So we
move.
typically choose like an incline barbell
Yeah.
or a decline or a dumbbell flat press or something.
So
So
3
quite
heavy sets of that,
Yeah.
that
so
basic
heavy
compound movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we would finish off with an isolation move. And then we would move on to shoulders and do the same. 3 sets of heavy compound.
Okay.
And then finish with a couple of sets of laterals. And then triceps the same. We would do 3 sets of a heavy compound and then finish with an isolation move. Like the sessions favour largely compound movements.
Okay.
So that the isolation work really is just to drive blood into the muscle.
How many sets are you doing with the isolation movement?
Just one normally.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But
I mean,
sometimes two.
So,
but
I
mainly
mean,
just-
with shoulders, we may do 2 sets of laterals, just because I feel that exercise does bring more to the table.
Especially, we're targeting certain weaknesses as well. Delts, I definitely need to bring up my delts.
Yeah.
So again, that would be something that Jordan will look at because he writes the programs and things that we both do and is in charge of all of my training and nutrition.
Yeah.
So obviously we're trying to target our weaknesses within the session as well. So something like that may not be necessary for one of his clients, say, but it's necessary for us because we need to target weaknesses.
Look, when we move into comp prep, and then the sessions are divided, that's where you then obviously have the capability to add in more specific work.
Okay.
Because the sessions then lend themselves to greater volume.
Okay.
Because then if it's a chest and back session that are split, it's then not a push session anymore, it's solely a chest session. So then we're looking at like 12 to 15 sets just for chest.
Okay.
So then that chest session becomes a whole new aspect.
Right.
So then it would be like multiple exercises from multiple angles. But then in that perspective, we're looking more to burn calories.
Okay.
So as opposed to in the off season where the volume is low and we're solely looking to progress lifts.
Now, off season, if you were doing each body part twice a week, would those workouts change or would they
They
be the same
would,
workouts? Okay.
because obviously I don't favour squatting and deadlifting twice a week.
Yeah.
They will only be once a week.
Okay.
Because I don't feel that you can lower back load that consistently through the week and progress your lifts.
Right.
So then it's about where you place your squat in relation to where you place your deadlift, and then where you place the rest of your movements around.
Right.
So then at the beginning of the week, we would deadlift. Midway through the week, we would squat. But then the rest of the week, we would lay off our lower back again.
Okay.
As if we were then putting rows and T-bars in there and stiff leg deadlifts on
More
top of
lower
that.
back work.
You then get to your deadlift again at the next week, and then you've regressed.
I see.
So then it's about, again, what your body can and can't recover from. Some people have phenomenal recovery capabilities regardless. If you look at Ronnie's previous self, he would deadlift on a Monday, and then he would squat on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then later on in the week, when he repeated his session, he would front squat, and later on in the week.
But we're not all Ronnie Coleman.
We're not Ronnie Coleman.
Right.
So then, to me, in my mind, when I look at programming, I just don't see that as realistic programming.
Yeah. From experience as well, you burn out too quickly.
Yeah, you just burn out.
And it's just not fun.
And the idea is to progress over that 8-week
Absolutely,
period.
it's not just I can last 1 week or last 2 weeks, because most people can just through stubbornness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
But it's about being smarter to last the whole 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then that's when you will build a lot of tissue. And then that's how I've managed to build the muscle I have in quite a short time frame, just by being smart with my programming. So then each phase I successfully complete, and then we move on to the next one and just keep them rolling.
How would the phases differ then? If they were all off season, like let's say you had a whole year to train for a contest and you were going 8 weeks.
It would depend on what lifts are progressing at certain rates, I find. And to be honest, if everything is progressing quite well, I tend not to change too much. I tend to just pull back, rest, and then go again.
I mean, we've
Okay.
stuck to a certain training plans for huge amounts of
Yeah.
time.
As long as it's working.
Yeah, I mean, if
and
it's
all
not
we would do is
stalling
just
and it's
deload.
working.
Yeah.
And we just deload when we need to deload, and then we'll go again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Now, after the 8 weeks, do you take a week off? Do you deload? Or what?
again, that depends. I mean, we try to just listen to our bodies.
Okay.
Like, we don't have planned deloads, which for some people is needed. But I think if you're quite experienced and you're quite in tune with your body, you can literally go, all of a sudden, I need to deload next week.
Yeah.
And that will hit you out of nowhere.
During that 8-week cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you could get 12 weeks through and you'd be like, I feel great.
Okay.
So now I'm going to keep pushing.
I see.
But then it's about, right, how much further can I last before I then start to place myself in like the risk of injury.
You want to have your deload week or your week off before you feel you really need it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, it's just sort of listening to your body, reading the signs, but also, I mean, it's hard to be sensible with yourself. Like when you love training, you just want to keep going.
Yeah.
But you sort of think, okay, well in 2 weeks' time, I think I'm going to be quite burnt out, so perhaps I should have the rest now.
Okay.
Because you never actually want to be burnt out, because you just want to recover before you need to recover.
Right,
sort of thing,
right.
don't you? So
You don't want to hit that wall. You
no,
want to
you
stop
don't.
before
Yeah,
that, right?
you don't want to hit that wall where you don't want to go to the gym and things.
So tell me a little bit about the nutrition then. How would you sort of plan that nutrition while you're growing and you're going through this, this growing phase?
Typically, we place carbohydrates at the workout perimeter, and then where we don't need carbohydrates, we then will give ourselves fats.
Okay.
So we keep our diet quite simple in that sense.
We don't really change much from comp prep to off-season as such. Anyway, I mean, the setup is always very similar. Carbs around the workout, carbs for recovery, and fats when we don't need them. It will just be a case of fluctuating the macros slightly. Also I'm very lucky that, I mean, Jordan's my coach, so he, can just change my nutrition at the click of a hat if I'm lagging slightly, and that applies to comp prep or off season.
Right.
If we have a real heavy week of training and weight perhaps drops a little bit too quick, or you're just feeling really depleted, just bump up the food or have a higher carb meal or something.
Right.
It's very person specific, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I've hooked up myself with Shelby Stans, who I know you're familiar with,
Sure.
off of RX.
Yeah.
And so Shelby's been directing me for the last month on post-show since I did the universe on with my nutrition, and it's very similar to how I previously did things, but just having that extra set of eyes to overlook and just make those calls is priceless, I feel.
Yeah.
And Shelby is phenomenal. I mean, his track record is stellar. So that's been a big help to me. So gratitude where it's due there to Shelby, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, is this different then for designing a program for everybody? Because I mean, some people are more sensitive to carbohydrates, but I'm thinking if you're training that heavy and that intense, and you're training 6 days a week, you would need carbohydrates.
Absolutely. I mean, I always favour carbs at the workout perimeter.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any clients that I have that aren't utilising carbohydrates to some extent. I mean, obviously that is less and more depending on the person.
Yeah.
As you said, everyone has different
metabolism.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, everyone can handle and tolerate different amounts of carbs.
Right.
I mean, Corrine, for example, has a phenomenal metabolism, and at the moment on off season, she's on more grams of carbs a day than I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on like 350, and you're on
435.
435.
Wow.
So I mean, which for a 135-pound girl
Yeah.
is a lot of carbs, and
Right.
she's lean.
Right.
And she's still real
I saw
lean.
the other day. Yeah.
So I mean, as I say, we just see those as numbers. I mean, and
They're relative to everybody.
precisely.
Yeah.
Don't draw too much from them. Don't try to compare your numbers to someone else.
Yeah.
Because all that matters is that where you start and where you end, and those numbers will just go up and down as and when.
It's just fuel as well.
Yeah.
If you need that fuel, have the fuel, use it. It doesn't really mean much.
Right.
If someone can run off very few carbs and someone needs 1,000 grams, it's just fuel. Like,
Right.
as long as you're okay.
So is your goal in the off season then to increase your body weight and get bigger?
For me, this off season is actually not.
Okay.
For the first time.
For the first time. I was on the Nabi Uni stage probably the biggest by 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So for me, this off season is about just recomping the whole way through.
Okay.
So I'm looking to really maintain my weight, bring my weights in as much as I can. Because obviously when you're pushing hard to gain muscle quite quickly, that's one of the first areas that will go is your waistline.
Okay.
And over the last 2 years, mine has crept up probably faster than I would want to. So we're going to look to bring that back in, maintain my weight as best we can, and then be at a start point for the next prep where I'm already very lean.
Okay.
Which is going to take a lot of work. It takes a lot of focus through the whole of off-season. So you have to be extremely meticulous the whole way through. But needs must if you're going to be where I want to be.
Okay. Now, when you go to contest prep mode and you're changing your whole training program, because now you're saying you're doing like 12 to 15 sets for each body part, how is your diet changing then? Are you just cutting back slowly on your diet, or?
Previously, when I've handled my own diet, I wouldn't change too much in my calorie intake until I really had to. So I would look to expend energy first and foremost.
Okay.
So I would add weight sessions, I would add cardio.
Right.
And then once I'm at a limit where I kind of can't add any more, then I would look to take my calories down.
Okay. Well, your calorie expenditure is going way up now because now
Precisely.
you're training with more sets and twice a day.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
in theory, if you get that right, you could still stay on fairly high calories the whole way through.
Right, right.
Which again is going to help maintain muscle mass quite well.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that is really person dependent.
Yeah.
And that is an art in itself of when to cut food, when to re-add food.
Right.
But as a whole, that is my general approach.
Okay.
So I would look to expend energy before I would take nutrition away.
Okay, gotcha. So, because you're increasing your calories then, you're increasing your training load, how do you do that? Do you do that like cycles also when you're going into contest prep? Because you said the off season was like 8-week cycles, right?
Generally not. I mean, once we go at a prep, then that'll just be one big stretch the whole way
Okay,
through.
more maintaining and just getting in shape.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, like we will still look to progress lifts, but the progressions won't come as well as they do.
Right.
I mean, there'll be very small increments.
Right.
I mean, we have like 0.25 kilo plates, so it's like 0.1 pound plates,
Right,
the little biscuit plates.
Right.
Progression,
So
progression.
progression is progression.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, as long as we're not regressing in strength,
It's okay.
then you know that you're not dropping muscle mass.
Now, what would happen if you were regressing in strength? Does that mean something's going wrong? Or maybe
Not
the off season
necessarily.
wasn't as...
I suppose, but in that moment in time, there's not a whole lot you can do. I mean, because the goal there is to get in shape.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't get in shape, you're not going to place, regardless.
Right.
So it's not like you can counter it too much. You can readdress your training program to an extent, but I think with that's more now just down to mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, really are very stubborn-minded,
Yeah.
you can hold on to your strength.
I think
Right.
at the business end of prep,
Yeah.
you
It's
just
tough,
keep going.
but-
You just
Yeah.
go and you do what you have to
You
do.
just dog that phase.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, are you doing any other type of training techniques? Are you doing drop sets or anything? Or is it just the increase of the sets going from low
During a
sets
comp
to
prep,
higher?
we will utilise more drop sets, rest pause sets,
Okay.
and we'll look to expend more energy through those means. But in an off-season phase, we tend not to do that too much, and everything's more straight
It's
sets.
Right.
not to sort of waste any energy.
Yeah.
Really.
So the off season, the progression is mostly coming from overload, from
That's correct.
training with more and
That's
more weight.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
We tend not to use any other methods of hypertrophy to bring
So
intensity
you
to
save
those
that for
sessions.
the contest prep.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Gotcha.
But then again, in the moment, if it happens and you kind of go in with the flow of the session and it's there, then we kind of just wing it in that sense.
But
As a general rule, yeah, we will save those for comp prep.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So the whole goal then, really, in the off season is just progression.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that is the goal.
Progression through overload,
Yeah.
through training heavier.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
That's the way.
I agree with that. I always liked training heavy myself throughout my whole career, and
Yeah.
I didn't have it as scientifically planned as you did, but
Yeah.
I always thought that the way to get bigger is to train heavier.
Yeah.
It works.
I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
Like I said again, it worked for Dorian, it worked for Ronnie.
Right.
I mean, and those are two physiques that are yet to be replicated.
Right.
So, I mean, when you draw the inspiration from those guys, and then you have the scientific means behind what they were doing,
Yeah.
then to me it seems fairly concrete.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we've been running with that for a while, and it's certainly working.
Yeah.
So I don't intend to change the way we do it anytime
Not
soon.
I did an interview with the women bodybuilder Kala Bellamore, who is from Australia, and she competed out here at the Tampa Pro in her first pro show.
Yeah.
And she was working with Milos Garcev, and it was sort of like the same type of training philosophy where she was training twice a day.
Yeah.
And she used the nutrition as the guidelines for improving. It wasn't taking more days off, it was just more using more nutrition and training more often.
I mean, Milos's methods are phenomenal. I mean, I went and spent a weekend with Milos in Serbia.
did you? Okay.
So, I mean, I've been trained by a lot of good coaches.
Yeah.
So in that weekend that I spent there, I learned everything. Not everything that Milos does. You can't learn everything from the mind in a weekend.
Yeah, right.
But I picked up enough to take what I needed and to apply it into what we do.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, when we actually get back from this trip, we have 3 days with Milos again because he's in the UK.
Okay.
So we've been invited to his muscle camp.
Okay.
When we're back. So we have a few more days of being put through nasty giant sets, which is the exact polar opposite to how we train, which is great to mix things up and put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable and where you can learn. Because previously I wouldn't have been so up for trying these things because I was so set in my ways, but now I try everything, just to be like, is there something I can take from that?
Right.
And there always is. There always is. But you have to try these things.
Right.
Yeah, Milos's training is brutal, to say the least.
So would you ever use that type of training, the giant sets?
No, it's not for me.
Okay.
I find as soon as I do that for too long a period, I start to get flat. I start to take away from my physique.
Yeah.
And I really did give it a fair run. And regardless of how I set up my nutrition, regardless of how high I took my calories to compensate for that output, I could not keep the fitness to my physique.
Okay.
So then for me that was a pretty big indicator that this isn't quite right for my body.
Right. Okay. Well, that's really interesting stuff. I like the idea of training more often and just using the nutrition as a guideline. It seems like that's sort of the trend lately now, is where guys are going back to training things, body parts twice a week. Yeah. Instead of like what Dorian was doing, where he's training 4 days a week, once a week.
Absolutely. I would like to have seen what would happen to Dorian if he trained twice a week.
Yeah.
if that was even feasible with the intensity he trained at.
Right.
But we're getting on well with it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us on the Florida Physique Report. I hope you enjoy your stay in Tampa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You'll be heading out to Miami this weekend for the Nationals, and I appreciate meeting you guys.
Cool. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for the Florida Physique Report. I want to thank everybody for joining us for our interview with Jordan Peters and his wife Corrine. Very interesting interview. I hope you guys picked up a lot from the different training styles that Jordan and his wife use. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Bodybuilding Legends Show, and our guest will be Rich Gaspari. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you then.